Tonight, we are here to perform another ancient tragedy. I'll give you another one. Another one. A brief background. The Trojan War began 10 years ago, a conflict caused by various humans and gods. Agamemnon is essentially the leader of the Greeks, and we'll talk about that more in just a second, gathering his fellow kings to take back Helen for Menelaus, Agamemnon's brother. Unfortunately, when the Greeks were about to set out to get to Troy, the weather was so bad and blocked them, Agamemnon had to sacrifice his own daughter Iphigenia to get underway. Now, while he's been gone this whole time, Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, has grown ever more furious about the murder and plots against her husband with her new lover, Aegisthus. Now that the war is over, Agamemnon returns home triumphant, oblivious to what's been going on at home, and dragging along with him Cassandra, a former princess at Troy who's been gifted with the ability to see the future, but cursed so that no one will believe her. And that's pretty much everything you need to know, except for the fact that in the Greek, the Greeks at Troy were not called Greeks; they were called Argives, Achaeans, and Danaans. So you'll hear those in the play today. And Troy is also called Ilion. So Trojans are Trojans, or people from Ilium and that sort of thing. And with that, I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
The scene is in Argos, immediately in front of the steps leading up to the main doors of the royal palace. In front of the palace, there are statues of gods. At the start of the play, the watchman is prone on the roof of the palace, resting his head on his arms. It is just before dawn.
I pray the gods will give me some relief and end this weary job. One long, full year I've been lying here on this rooftop, the palace of the sons of Atreus, resting on my arms just like a dog. I've come to know the night sky, every star, the powers we see glittering in the sky, bringing winter and summer to us all, as the constellations rise and sink. I'm still looking for that signal flare, the fiery blaze from Troy, announcing it's been taken. These are my instructions from the queen. She has a fiery heart, the determined resolution of a man. When I set my damp, restless bed up here, I never dream, for I don't fall asleep. No. Fear comes instead and stands beside me, so I can't shut my eyes and get some rest. If I try to sing or hum a tune, something to do instead of trying to sleep, since I'm always awake, I start to weep as I lament what's happened to this house, where things are not being governed well, not like they used to be. How I wish my watching could end happily tonight, with good news brought by fire blazing through this darkness.
The signal fire the watchman has been waiting for suddenly appears. The watchman springs to his feet.
Fire, gleaming in the night. What a welcome sight. Light of a new day. You'll bring on many dancing choruses. Right here in Argos, celebrations of this joyful news. It's over. It's over. I must call out to wake the queen, Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife, to get her out of bed so she can raise a shout of joy as soon as possible inside the palace, welcoming this fire, if indeed the city of Troy's fallen, as this signal fire seems to indicate. For my part, I'll start things off by dancing, treating my king's good fortune as my own. I've had a lucky dice roll, 666, thanks to this fiery signal.
His mood suddenly changes to something much more hesitant and reserved.
But I hope the master of this house may come home soon so I can grasp his welcome hand in mine. As for all the rest, I'm saying nothing. A great ox stands on my tongue, but this house, if it could speak, might tell some stories. I speak to those who know about these things. For those who don't, there's nothing I remember.
The watchman goes down into the house. Enter the chorus of Argive elders, very old men who carry staves to help them stand up. As they speak, servants come out of the palace and light oil lamps in offering to the statues of gods outside the palace doors.
It's now 10 years since Menelaus, Priam's great adversary, and Lord Agamemnon, two mighty sons of Atreus, joined by Zeus in double honors, twin thrones and royal sceptres, left this country with that fleet 1,000 Argive ships to back their warrior cause with force, hearts screaming in the battle fury. Two eagles overwhelmed by grief, crying for their young wings, beating like oars. Their wheel aloft, high above their home, distressed because they've lost their work. Their fledgling in the nest are gone. Then, one of the supreme powers, Apollo, or Pan, or Zeus, hear the shrill wailing cry. Hear those screaming birds who live within his realm and send a late avenging fury to take revenge on his transgressors in just the way mighty Zeus, god of hospitality, sends those sons of Atreus against Alexander, son of Priam. For the women's sake, Helen, the one who had so many men, condemning Trojans and Danaus to many heartfelt struggling both alike, knees splintering as the fighting starts. Now things stand as they stand. What destined to come will be fulfilled, and no liberation, sacrifice, or human tears will mitigate the gods' unbending wrath of sacrifice not blessed by fire. But as for us, whose old bodies confer no honor, who were left behind when the army slayed so long ago, we wait here, using up our strength to support ourselves with canes, like children, whose powers, though growing in their chests, is not yet fit for Ares, god of war. And so it is with old men too, who, when they reach extreme old age, wither like leaves and go their way, 3-footed, no better than a child, as they wander like a daydream. But you, daughter of Theridus, queen of Clytemnestra, what's going on? What news? What report have you received that led you to send your servants out, commanding all this sacrifice? For every god our city worships, all powerful gods above the earth, all those below and those in heaven, and those in the marketplace. Their altars are ablaze with offerings. Fires rise here and there and everywhere, right up to the heaven, fed by sacred oils brought from the palace, sweet and holy. The purity sustains those flames. Tell us what you can. Tell us what's right for us to hear. Cure our anxious thoughts. For now, at one particular moment, things look grim. But then our hopes, rising from those sacrificial fires, make things seem better. Soothing corrosive pain that eats my heart. I have the power to proclaim that prophecy made to our kings as they were setting on their way, a happy outcome for their expedition. My age inspires in me Parisian still, the power of song sent from the gods to sing how two kings of Achaea's troops, united in joint command, led off with the youth of Greece, armed with avenging spears, marching against Troy, land of Tyrsa. They got a happy omen. 2 eagles, kings of birds, appeared before the king of ships. One bird was black, the other tail was white. Here, close to the palace on the right, in a palace where everyone could see, the eagles were gorging themselves, devouring a pregnant hare, and all its unborn offspring struggling in their death throes still. Sing out the song of sorrow, song of grief, but let the good prevail. Then the army's prophet, Calicus, observing the twin purposes in the 2 warlike sons of Atreus, saw the twin leaders of the army and those birds devouring the hare. He then interpreted the omen, saying, "In due course, this expedition will capture Priam's city, Troy. Before its tower of violent fate will annihilate all public good. But may no anger from the gods cast its dark shadow on our troops. A great bit forged to curb Troy's mouth. For goddess Artemis is full of anger at her father's flying hounds. She pities the cowering sacrificial creature in distress. She pities its young, slaughtered before she brought them into life. Artemis abandons the eagle's feast. Sing out the song of sorrow, song of grief, but let the good prevail. And lovely Artemis, though you're gentle with the tender cubs of vicious lions and take special joy in the suckling young of all wild living beasts, promising things will work out well as this omen of the eagles indicates, an auspicious sign, but ominous. And I call Apollo, god of healing, to stop Artemis delaying the fleet by sending hostile winds to keep the ships from sailing. In her demands for another sacrifice, one which violates all human laws, which no feast celebrates. It shatters families and makes the wife lose all respect and hate her husband. For in the home of dreadful anger waits. It does not forget and cannot be appeased. Its treachery controls the house, waiting to avenge a slaughtered child. Calicus prophesied that fatal destiny, read from those birds as the army marched, speaking by the palace of the kings. And to confirm all this, sing out the song of sorrow, song of grief, but let the good prevail. Oh, Zeus, whoever he may be, if this name please him as invocation, then that's the name I'll call to him. As I try to think of all these things, though, I have no words to shake my thoughts other than Zeus. If I can truly succeed in easing my heart of this heavy grief, this self-defeating weight of sorrow. As for Uranus, who was once so great, bursting with arrogance for every fight. People will talk about that god as if he'd never ever lived. And his son Kronos, who came after, has met his match and is no more. But whoever with a willing heart cries his triumphal song to Zeus will come to understand all things. Zeus, who guided the mortals to be wise, has established his fixed law. Wisdom comes through suffering. Trouble with his memories of pain drips in our hearts as we try to sleep. So men against their will learn to practice moderation. Favors come to us from God, seated on their solemn thrones. Such grace is harsh and violent. So then, the leader of Acheron's ships, the elder brother Agamemnon, did not blame or fault the prophet, but give in to fortune's sudden blows. For Achilles' armies, stranded there on the shores across from Calicus, was held by the opposing winds of Aeschylus, where tides ebb and flow. Troops grew weary as supplies ran low. Winds blew from the Starium River, keeping ships at anchor, harming men with too much leisure. Troops grew hungry. They wandered, discontent and restless. The winds corroded ships and cables. The delays seemed endless, on and on, until the men, the flower of Argos, began to wilt. Then Calchas proclaimed the cause of this. It was Artemis, and he proposed a further remedy. But something harsh, even worse than the opposing winds, so painful that son of Atreus struck their canes on the ground and wept. Then Agamemnon, the older king, spoke up. It's harsh not to obey this fate, but to go through with its harsh as well. To kill my child, the glory of my house, to stain a father's hand before the altar with the streams of virgin's blood? Which of my options is not evil? How can I leave this fleet and let my fellow warriors down? Their passionate demand for sacrifice, to claim the winds lie within their rights, even the sacrifice of virgin blood. So be it. All may be well. But Agamemnon strapped on the harsh yoke of necessity. His spirits changed and his intentions became profane, unholy, unsanctified. He undertook an act beyond all daring. Troubles come, above all, from delusions inciting men to rash designs, to evil. So Agamemnon steeled his heart to make his own daughter the sacrifice, an offering for the Achillean fleet. So he would persecute the war waged to avenge the woman held. In their eagerness for war, those leaders paid no attention to the girl. Her pleas for help, her cries of "Father!" any more to her than her virgin youth. Her father offered up a prayer, then ordered men to seize her and lift her up. She'd fallen forward and just lay there in her robes, to raise her high above the altar like a goat, urging them to keep their spirits up. They gagged her lovely mouth with force, just like a horse's bit, to keep her speechless, to stifle any curse which she might cry against her family. As she threw her saffron robe onto the ground, she glanced at the men, each of them, those carrying out the sacrifice, her eyes imploring pity. She looked just like a painting, dying to speak. She often sung before her father's table when, as host, he'd entered his guest a virgin using her flawless voice to honor her dear father with her love, as he prayed for blessing at the third liberation. What happened next I did not see, and I won't say. What Calchas' skill had prophesied did come to pass. The scales of justice moved to show that wisdom comes through suffering. As for what's to come, you'll know that when it comes. So let it be. To know would be to grieve ahead of time. It's clear whatever has happened will happen, like tomorrow's dawn.
Enter Clytemnestra through the palace doors.
But I hope whatever follows will be good, according to the wishes of our queen, who governs here, our closest guard, keeping watch all by herself, protecting Philippician lands.
Queen Clytemnestra, we've come here in defense to your royal authority. With our king far away, the man's throne is empty, so it's appropriate for us to pay allegiance to his wife, the queen. I'd really like to hear your news, whether what you've heard is good or not. Your sacrificial offerings give us hope, but we won't object if you stay silent.
It's a welcome message. As the proverb says, may dawn be born from Mother Night. You'll hear great news greater than all your hopes. The Argives have captured Priam's city.
What's that you say? I've misheard your words. What you've just said, it defies belief.
I say Troy is now in Achaean hands. Is that clear enough?
That fills me with joy. So much so I can't stop crying.
Then your eyes reveal your faithful loyalty.
Is this report reliable? Is there proof?
Of course there is, unless some god deceives me.
Has some vision persuaded you of this? Something in a dream, perhaps?
Not at all. As if I'd listened to some dozing brain.
Perhaps some unfledged rumor raised by your hopes.
Now you're insulting my intelligence, as if I were a youngster, just a child.
When exactly was the city captured?
I'll tell you. It was the very night that gave birth to this glorious day.
How could a messenger get here so fast?
Hephaestus, god of fire, sent his bright blaze speeding here from Ida, his messenger, flames racing from one beacon to the next, from Ida to Hermes' rock in Lemnos. From that island, the great flames sped to the third fire on the crest of Athos, sacred to Zeus, and then, arsing high, the beacon light sprang across the sea, exulting in its golden fiery power, rushing on, like another sun, passing the message to the lookout towers at Macystus. The man there was not sleeping like some fool. Without a moment's pause, he relayed the message so the blazing news sped on, leaping across Euripus' stream to pass the signal to the next watchman at Messapion. Those men, in their turn, torched a pile of dried-out heather, firing the message onward. The flaming light was not diminished. Its strength kept growing. Like a glowing moon, it jumped across the plain of Asopus to the ridges on Mount Cytherion, where it set alight the next stage of the relay race of fire. Those watching there did not neglect their work. That light, which came to them from far away, they passed on with an even greater blaze, which dashed across the shores of Gorgopus to reach Mount Plantus with orders for those there to keep the beacon moving. They lit a fire, a huge flaming pillar with unchecked force, speeding the message on, its light visible even at the headland by the Saronic Gulf. It swooped down once it reached the crest of Arcanus, that lookout near our city, and from there jumped down the roof of Atreus' sons, flames directly linked to blazing Troy. I organized these messengers of fire, setting them up in sequence one by one. In that race, the first and the last both triumph. The ones who sent the message and received it. That's the evidence I set before you. A message from my husband, dispatched all the way from burning Troy to me. Of course. 380.
Course here's.
I think that's...
Course here's still Cameron, because we're looking at the numbers.
Oh, it's still me. Okay, my bad.
In the brackets.
You're good.
It's all good.
My queen, I'll offer up all the goods, my prayers of thanks, but now I'd like to hear the details of your wonderful report. Can you tell me the news once more?
On this very day, Aeschylus' army has taken Troy. Inside that town, I think. Voices cry out in mass confusion. If you place oil and vinegar together in the same container, you'll observe they never mix, but separate themselves, like enemies. Well, in Troy, the shouting of conquerors and conquered is like that, matching their very different situations. Trojans fall upon their family corpses, husbands, brothers. The children scream over dead old men who gave them life. As captives now, they keep lamenting all their slaughtered loved ones. But the Argives, famished after a long night's roaming and weary after battle, are set to eat, to gorge themselves on what the town affords. They've quartered now in captured Trojan homes, sheltered from the night sky's frost and dew, but not according to official rank, rather as such determines each man's lot. They're happy. They'll sleep straight through the night without posting a guard. Now, if these troops fully and piously respect Troy's gods, a captured country's divinities and shrines, those who've conquered may not, in their turn, be conquered. But let no frenzied greed, no overpowering lust for plunder fall upon the army from the start. So they ravage what they should leave alone. For to get safely home, the army needs to make that long journey back again. But even if the soldiers do reach home without offending any god, harsh sorrow for the dead may still be watching for them, unless some new disaster intervenes. Well, I've let you hear my woman's words. May good things now prevail for all to see. I take this news as cause for common joy.
You speak wisely, like a prudent man. But now I've heard that I can trust your news. We must prepare ourselves to thank the gods, who have given a blessing worthy of our toil.
Clytemnestra goes back into the palace. O Zeus, my king and friendly knight, you've handed us great glories to keep as our possession. You cast upon the towers of Troy your all-encompassing hunting net, and no one, young or old, escaped its enslaving fatal mesh that overpowered them all. I worship mighty Zeus, god of hospitality, who made this happen. For a long time now, he's aimed his bow at Paris, making sure his arrow would not fall short or fly above the stars and miss. Men will say it's a blow from Zeus and trace his presence in all this. He acts on what he himself decides. Some people claim that gods don't really care about those men who trample underfoot favors from the pure in heart. Such people are profane, for we now clearly see destruction is the penalty for those with reckless pride, who breathe a boastful spirit greater than is just, because their homes are full, stuffed with riches to excess beyond what's best for them. Let men have sufficient wealth to match good sense, not so much it piles up their misfortunes. There's no security in riches for the insolent man who kicks aside and pushes from his sight great altars of righteousness. Such a man is overpowered by perverse persuasion, insufferable child of scheming folly. And there's no remedy. His evil's not concealed. It stands out, a lurid glitter, like false bronze when rubbed. All men can judge his darkness once he's tested by events. He's like a child chasing a flying bird. He brands his city with disgrace which cannot be removed, for no god hears his prayers. The man who lives this way, doing wrong, the gods destroy. Such a man was Paris. He came to the home of the sons of Atreus and then abused their hospitality, running off with his host's wife. But she left her people the smash of shield and spear, a fleet well armed for war. To Troy she carried with her no dowry, but destruction. Daring what should not be dared, she glided through Troy's gates. The prophets in this house cried out, "Alas, alas for home and house, and also for the royal leaders here. Alas for the marriage bed, still holding traces of her body, the one who loved her husband. As for him, he sits apart, in pain, silent and dishonored. He does not blame her. No, he aches to be with her, the woman far across the sea. Her image seems to rule the house. Her husband finds no beauty now in graceful statues, for to his blank eyes all sexual loveliness has gone. In his dreams he sees sad images with memories of earlier joy, a vain relief, for when the man thinks he sees such beauty there, all at once it's gone, slipping through his hands, flying away along the paths of sleep. These are the sorrows in the house, around the hearth, and pain much worse than this. For everywhere throughout the land of Greece, in every home where men set out to gather in that army, there is insufferable grief. Many disasters pierce the heart. People know the ones who leave, but every house gets back weapons and ash, not living men. For Ares, god of war, pays gold for soldiers' bodies. In spear fights he tips the scales, then back from Troy he ships a heavy freight of ash, cremated bodies of the dead, sent home for loved ones to lament. He trades funeral dust for men, shiploads of urns filled up with ashes. Back home, the people weep, praising one man for his battle skill, another for courageous death. Some complain about that woman, but she's to blame for all of this, but do so quietly. Or how she's to blame, but do so quietly. Nonetheless, this sorrow spreads resentment against the leaders of the war, the sons of Atreus. Meanwhile, over there, across the seas in Troy, around the city walls, the hostile ground swallows our beautiful young men, now hidden in the earth they conquered. The people's voice, once angered, can create dissent, ratifying a curse which now must have its way. And so, in my anxiety, I wait, listening for something murky, something emerging from the gloom. For gods aren't blind to men who kill. In time, black agents of revenge, the Furies, wear down and bring to nothing the fortunes of a man who prospers in unjust ways. They wear him out, reverse his luck, and bring him at last among the dead. There's no remedy. To boast too much of one's success is dangerous. The high mountain peak is struck by Zeus's lightning bolt. I'd choose wealth no one could envy. May I never be the sort of man who puts whole cities to the sword. Let me never see myself enslaved, my life in someone else's power.
This welcome fire message is spread fast. It's gone throughout the town, but is it true? Sent from the gods or false? Who knows? What man is such a senseless child he lets his heart catch fire at this news and then is shattered by some fresh report?
And that's just the nature of a woman, to give thanks before the truth appears.
Yes, they're far too trusting. The proper order in women's minds is easily upset.
Rumors women start soon die out. Soon come to nothing.
We'll quickly know about these signal fires. Flaming beacons pass from place to place. We'll find out if that really did occur or if, just like a dream, this joyful light has come in order to deceive our hopes. For I see a herald coming from the shore. An olive bow of triumph shades his face. The dry dust on him, all those muddy clothes. Tell me he'll report the facts. Nor will he light some flaming pole of a mountain wood to pass a signal on with smoke. No, he'll shout out to us what he has to say, and we can then rejoice still more, or else... But I won't think of that. Let's have good news to add to what we already know. If anyone is praying for something else to happen to our city, let him reap the harvest of his own misguided heart.
Enter the herald.
Greetings to this Argive soil, my father's land. On this day, 10 years later, I've come back. I've seen many hopes of mine destroyed, and the only one fulfilled, I've made it home. I never dreamed I'd die here in Argos with a burial plot in this land I love. I bless the land, the bright light of the sun, and I give thanks to Zeus, the highest god, and to Apollo, Lord of Pytho. May you never fire your arrows at us anymore. We've had enough of those, my lord. Besides Commander's Banks, when you took your stand against us. But now, Apollo, you may preserve and heal us. And I greet all the gods assembled here, including Hermes, whom I honor, the well-loved herald god, worshipped as the herald's patron. And next I pray to the heroic spirits who sent us off. We'll welcome back the remnants of our army, those spared being slaughtered by the spear. Oh, you hall of kings, you roof I cherish, you sacred seats and gods who face the sun. If your shining eyes in days gone by have welcomed our king home, then do so now. After his long absence, he's coming here, carrying light into the darkness. For you and all assembled here, a mighty king, Lord Agamemnon.
You want to try that one again?
Wait, Lord Agamemnon. Jesus. My head hurts so bad.
I'm gonna have a baby in a month and I don't know diddly.
I don't know diddly.
Greet him with full respect, for he's uprooted Troy with the pickaxe of avenging Zeus. He's reduced to soil. The altars of the gods and all their shrines has been obliterated, laying waste all that country's rich fertility. Around Troy's neck he's fixed destruction's yoke. Now he's coming home, King Agamemnon. The fortunate elders of the Atreus. Among all men he merits the most honor. For neither Paris nor his accomplice, the Trojan city, can ever boast again their deeds were greater than suffering. Guilty of the R-word and theft, he lost his loot. He's utterly destroyed his father's house. Ugh. The land too, which sustained his people. So Priam's son have paid the price twice over.
All joyful greetings to you, Herald, as you come back from our army.
I too rejoice. Now I don't fear death. It's as the gods decide.
Did your love for this land cause you distress?
Yes. That's why my eyes are filled with tears.
It's as if you had some pleasing sickness.
How so? Tell me exactly what you mean.
You suffered from love for those who loved you.
You mean the country and the army both missed each other?
Yes, so much so, often my anxious heart cried out aloud.
What caused this gnawing trouble in your heart?
Long ago, I learned to keep my silence, the best antidote against more trouble.
Why is that? You were afraid of someone once the king were gone?
Indeed I was. In fact, as you have said, there'd be great joy in dying now.
I guess they don't like my performance. It's true. It's true we have all done well. As for what happened long ago, you could say some worked out happily and some was bad. Who except the gods avoids all pain throughout his life? If I told you what we went through, the hardships, wretched quarter, narrow berths, the harsh conditions, was there anything that we did not complain about? We had our share of trouble every day, and then on shore things were even worse. We had the camp right by the enemy wall. Oh God. Okay, I'm going backwards. It was wet. Dew from the sky and marshes soaked us. Our clothes rotted. Our hair grew full of lice, and it was freezing. The winters there beyond endurance. When snows from Ida froze birds to death. And then the heat. So hot at noon, the sea without a ripple sank to sleep. But why complain about it? Our work is done. It's over for the dead who aren't about to spring to life again. So why should the living call to mind the dead? There's no need to relieve those blows of fate. I think it's time to bid a long farewell to our misfortune. For those still living, the soldiers left alive, our luck's run out. No loss can change that now. We've a right, as we cross land and sea, to boast aloud and cry out to the sun, Argive forces once having captured Troy, took their spoils of war and nailed them up in the gods' holy shrines. All through Greece, glorious tribute from the past. I don't even know what that said. So whoever hears the story of these things must praise our generals, our city too. Full honor and thanks to Zeus who did the work. That's my full report.
What you say is true. I was in the wrong, I won't deny that. But the old can always learn from younger men, and what you've said enriches all of us.
Enter Clytemnestra from the palace.
But your news will have a special interest for Clytemnestra and her household.
Some time ago, I cried out in triumph, rejoicing that first messenger arrived, the fiery herald of the night who told me Troy was captured and was being destroyed. Some people criticized me then, saying, "How come you're so easily persuaded by signal fires, Troy's being demolished? Isn't that just like a woman's heart, to get so jubilant?" Insults like these made it appear as if I'd lost my wits. But I continued with my sacrifice. Will you mute so that I think... Yeah, just so the echo. And everywhere throughout the city, women kept up their joyful shouting, as they traditionally do, echoing their exultation through all holy shrines, tending sweet-smelling spicy flames as they consumed their victims. So now, why do I need you to go on and on about all this? I'll hear it from the king. But so I can give my honored husband the finest welcome home, and with all speed. For what like gives a woman greater pleasure than to unbar the gates to her own husband as he comes home from battle, once the gods have spared his life in war? Tell him this, and give him the message to come home as soon as possible. The citizens will love to see him when he gets back. In this house, he'll find his wife as faithful as when he left, a watchdog of the home, loyal to him, hostile to his enemies, and for the rest, the same in every way. In this long time, I've not betrayed our bond. I've known no pleasure with another man, no breath of scandal. About such things, I understand as much as tempering bronze. I'm proud to state this, for it's all true. Nothing a noble lady should feel shame to say.
Clytemnestra exits back into the palace.
She seems to speak as if she really wants to tell you something, but in fact, to those who can interpret her words well, she's only saying what she ought to say. But tell me, Herald, can I learn something of Menelaus, this country's well-loved king? Did he make it back safe and sound with you?
I can't lie with false good news of Menelaus, so his friends can enjoy themselves for long.
I wish your news of him was true and good. It's hard when both of these don't go together.
Menelaus disappeared. The army lost sight of him and his ship. That's the truth.
Did you see him sail off from Ilion, or did some storm attack the entire fleet and cut him off from you?
Like a master archer, you hit the mark. Really, it's a thing's question there. Your last question briefly tells the story.
According to the others in the fleet, what happened? Is he alive or dead?
No one knows for certain, except the sun, moving around the earth, sustaining life.
Tell me how that storm struck the soldiers' ships. How did the anger of the gods come to an end?
It's not right I talk about our misfortune. And for such an auspicious day as this, we ought to keep such matters separate, in deference to the gods. When a messenger arrives distraught, bringing dreadful news about some slaughtered army, that's one wound inflicted on the city. Beyond that, from many houses, many men are driven to their destruction by the double whip which Ares, god of war, so loves. Disaster with two prongs, a bloody pair. A messenger way down with rules like this should report the fury song of triumph. But when he brings good news of men being saved to a city full of joyful celebrations, how can I mix the good news and the bad, telling of the storm which hit the Achaeans? A storm linked to the angers of the gods. For fire and siege, before now enemies swore a common oath and then proclaimed it by destroying Achaea's helpless forces. At night, malevolent seas rose up, and as winds from Thrace smashed ships together, pushed round by the power of that storm and driven by great bursts of rain, the ships scattered and disappeared, blown apart by the evil shepherd's whirlwind. Later, when the sun's bright light appeared again, we witnessed the Aegean Sea in bloom, with corpses of Achaean troops and ships.
Corpses! Corpses all over the goddamn place is crazy.
This is a new actor for me.
You gotta find a place to stash this shit.
You've gone full Adam Sandler now. Oh God, I don't know where you're gonna be.
Oh God.
I can't feel your teeth, kitty.
I'm just sweating. As for us, some gods saved us in secret or interceded for us. Our boat survived, its hull intact. There was no human feat. Some divine hand was on our steering oar. Some stroke of fortune wanted our ship saved, not swamped by surf as we rode at the anchor or smashed upon the rocky coast. And then, once we avoided Hades on those seas, we couldn't believe our luck as we brooded in the bright light of day and all our troubles this new disaster which destroyed our fleet, dispersing it so badly. So on those ships, if anyone's still breathing, he'll now say we're the ones who've been destroyed. Why not when we say the same of them? But let's hope things all turn out for the best. As for Menelaus, wait for his return. That should be your first priority. If some ray of sunlight finds him still alive, his vision still intact thanks to Zeus, whose crafty plans at this point don't include destruction of the entire race, let's hope he'll soon come home again. Now you've heard this, you've listened to the truth.
Sadly, exit Herald.
Oh.
No. You gotta offer us some food before we go. You'll be like, "Are you hungry? You want anything? I'm gonna cook you something."
My back hurts so bad.
I'm cold. I'm gonna put a blanket on. I'm cold.
I don't have my inhaler.
Whoever came up with that name, a name so altogether true, was there some power we can't see telling that tongue what to say? the tongue which prophesied our fate. I mean the man who called her Helen, that woman wed for warfare, the object of our strife. For she's lived up to that name, a hell for ships, a hell for men, a hell for cities too. From her delicately curtained room she sailed away, transported by west wind, an earth-born giant. A horde of warriors with shields went after her, huntsmen following the vanished track her oars had left, all the way to where she'd beached her ship on leafy shores of Simois. Then came bloody war. And so Troy's destiny fulfilled, wrath brings a dreadful wedding day, late retribution for dishonor to hospitality and Zeus, god of guest and host. On those who celebrated with the bride, who on that day sang aloud the joyful wedding hymns. Now Priam's city in old age has learned a different song. I think I hear loud funeral chants, lamenting as an evil fate the marriage Paris brought. The city's filled with songs of grief. It must endure all sorrows, the brutal slaughter of its sons. So a man once raised a lion cub in his own home. The beast lacked milk, but craved its mother's teat. In early life the cub was gentle. Children loved it, and it brought the old men great delight. They gave it many things and clasped it in their arms, as if it were a nursing child. Its fiery eyes fixed on the hands that fed it, the creature fawned, a slave to appetite. But with time the creature grew and its true nature showed, the one its parents gave it. So it paid back those who reared it, preparing a meal in gratitude, an unholy slaughter of the flocks, house awash with blood, while those who lived inside the home were powerless against the pain, against the massive carnage. By God's will, they brought up a priest of doom in their own house. I'd say she first arrived in Troy, a gentle spirit, like a calming breeze, a delicate, expensive ornament, her soft darting eyes a flower, which stings the heart with love. Then, changing her direction, she took her marriage to its bitter end, destroying all those she lived with. With evil in her train and led by Zeus, god of guest and host, she turned into a bride of tears, a fury. Among men there's a saying, an old one from times long past, a man's prosperity, once fully grown, has offspring. It never dies without producing children. From that man's good fortune spring up voracious pains from all his race. But on this I don't agree with other men. I stand alone and say it's the unholy act that breeds more acts of the same kind. A truly righteous house is blessed, its children always fair and good. Old, violent aggression loves to generate new troubles among evil men. Soon or late, when it's fated to be born, new violence springs forth. A spirit no one can resist or conquer. Unholy recklessness, dark ruin on the home, like the destructiveness from which it sprang. But righteousness shines out from grimy dwellings, honoring the man who lives in virtue. She turns her eyes away from gold-encrusted mansions where men's hands are black and moves towards integrity, rejecting power and wealth, which, though praised, are counterfeit. Righteousness leads all things to well-deserved fulfillment. Enter Agamemnon in a chariot with Cassandra and a large military escort.
Welcome, son of Atreus, my king, Troy's destroyer. How shall I address you? How honor you without extravagance, without failing to say what's suitable? For many men value appearances more than reality. Thus they violate what's right. Everyone's prepared to sigh over some suffering man, though no sorrow really eats their hearts. Or they can pretend to join another person's happiness, forcing their faces into smiling masks. But a good man discerns true character. He is not fooled by eyes feigning loyalty, favoring him with watered-down respect. Back when you were gathering the army in Helen's cause, I won't deny that fact. I saw you in unflattered light, an unfit mind steering our ship astray, trying through that sacrifice to boost the spirits of dying soldiers. But now, with love, with a full heart, I welcome your return. For those who have won final success, the joy is worth the toil. If you inquire, in time you'll learn about the men who stayed at home, those who with justice stood guard for the city, and those who failed to carry out what's right.
First, I salute Argos and my native gods, as is right, the ones who worked with me for my safe return and for the justice I brought down on Priam City. The gods refused to listen to their urgent pleas, then cast their balance. There was no descent into the urn of blood to kill their men and wipe out Ilion. The other urn, the one for clemency, stood there empty. Only Hope took up her stand beside it. Even now, smoke from the burning city, an auspicious sign, tells of its capture. The storms from its destruction live on as fiery embers cool their dying breaths, give off ripe smells of wealth. For this, we must give the gods eternal thanks. Around Troy, we've cast a savage net. For a woman's sake, the beast from Argos, born from the belly of that wooden horse in the night, as the Pleiades went down, jumped out with their shields and razed the city. Leaping over walls, the ravenous lion gorged itself on blood of royalty. So much for my long prelude to the gods. As for your concerns, I heard your words and I'll keep them in mind. I agree with you. We'll work together. By nature, few men possess the inborn talent to admire a good friend's fortune without envy. Poisonous malice seeps into the heart, doubling the pain of the infected man, weighing him down with misfortunes of his own while he groans to see another's wealth. I understand too well companionship, no more substantial than pictures in a glass. From my experience, I'd say those men who seemed so loyal to me are shadows and no more images of true companions. All except Odysseus. He sailed with me much against his will, but once in harness, he was prepared to pull his weight for me. I say this whether he's alive or dead. I don't actually know. For other issues of the city and our gods, we'll set up a general assembly, all of us discussing things together. We must make sure that what's working well remains that way in future. By contrast, where we need some healing medicine, we'll make a well-intentioned effort to root out all infectious evil, burning the sores or slicing them away.
Enter Clytemnestra with attendants carrying the red carpet.
Now, I'll go inside my palace, my hearth and home, first to greet the gods who sent me off today and bring me back. May victory, which has been mine, stay with me forever.
Agamemnon moves to climb out of the chariot, but is held up by Clytemnestra's speech.
Citizens, you senior men of Argos here, I'm not ashamed to speak before you all, to state how much I love my husband. With time, men's fears diminish, so I'll speak out now. I don't talk as one who has been taught by others, so I'll just describe my life. My oppressive life, all the many years my husband's been away at Ilion. First, it's unmitigated trouble for a woman to sit at home alone, far from her man. She has to listen to all sorts of painful rumors. Messengers arrive hard on each other's heels, bearing news of some disaster, and everyone tells of troubles worse than those before, shouted throughout the house. If my husband had as many wounds as I heard rumors coming to this house, he'd have more holes in him than any net. If he'd died as many times as a rumor killed him, he could claim a second Geryon, that triple-bodied beast, and boast of being covered up with earth 3 times, one death for every separate shape. Because of all these spiteful messages, others have often had to cut me loose, a high-hung noose strung tight around my neck. That's why our son, Orestes, is not standing here. The most trusted bond linking you and me. He should be, but there's no cause to worry. He's being cared for by a friendly ally, Strophius of Phocis, who warned me twice. First, of your own danger under Ilion's walls. Second, of people here, how they could rebel, cry out against being governed, then overthrow the council. For it's natural to men, and once someone's down, to trample on him all the more. That's how I explain myself, and it's all true. As for me, my eyes are dry. The welling sources of my tears are parched. No drop remains. Many long nights I wept until my eyes were sore, as I kept watching for that beacon light I'd set up for you. But always it kept disappointing me. The faint whirring of a buzzing fly would often wake me up from the dreams of you, dreams where I saw you endure more suffering than the hours in which I slept had time for. But now, after going through all this, my heart is free of worry. So I would salute my lord, the watchdog who protects our household, the mainstay which saves our ship of state, the lofty pillar which holds our roof beams high. His father's truly begotten son, for men at sea a land they glimpse beyond their wildest hopes. The fairest dawn after a night of storms, a flowing stream to thirsty travelers. What joy it is to escape necessity! In my opinion, these words of greeting are worthy of him. So let there be no envy, since in days past we've suffered many ills. And now, my beloved lord, come to me here. Climb down from that chariot, but my king, don't place upon the common ground the foot which stamped out Troy.
Clytemnestra turns to the women attending on her, who, on her orders, begin to spread out at Agamemnon's feet the tapestries they have brought out from the house, making a path from the chariot to the palace doors. The tapestries are all a deep red, the color of blood.
You women, don't just stand there. I've told you what to do. Spread out these tapestries here on the ground directly in his path. Quickly. Let his path be covered in all red so justice can lead him back into his home, a place he never hoped to see. As for the rest, my unsleeping vigilance will sort it out with the help of gods, as fate decrees.
Daughter of Leda, guardian of my home, your speech was, like my absence, far too long. Praise that's due us should come from others. Then it's worthwhile. All those things you said, don't puff me up with such female honors or grovel there before me babbling tributes like some barbarian. Don't invite envy to cross my path by strewing it with cloth. That's how we honor gods, not human beings. For mortal man to place his foot like this on rich embroidery, in my view, not without some risk. I'm telling you, honor me as a man, not a god. My fame proclaims itself. It does not need foot mats made of such embroideries. Not even to think of doing something bad is God's greatest gift. When a man's life ends in great prosperity, only then can we declare that he's a happy man. Thus, if I act in every circumstance as I ought to now, then there's nothing I need fear.
Don't say that just to flout what I've arranged. This shit was expensive.
You should know I'll not go back on what I've said.
You must fear something then to act this way. You've made some promise to the gods.
I've said my final word. I fully understand, as well as any man, just what I'm doing.
What do you think Priam would have done if he'd had your success?
That's cleared. He'd have walked across the tapestries.
So then, why be ashamed by what men say?
But what people say can have great power.
True, but the man whom people do not envy is not worth their envy.
It's not like a woman to be so keen on competition.
It's fitting that the happy conqueror should let himself be swayed.
And in this contest, that's the sort of victory you value?
Why not agree? Be strong and yield to me of your own consent.
Well, if it's what you want, quick, someone get these sandals off. They've served my feet so well. And now I walk on these red tapestries, dyed in the sea. May no distant god catch sight of me, and for envy strike me down. There's much shame when my feet squander assets of my house, wasting wealth and costly woven finery.
Agamemnon in bare feet comes down from the chariot onto the tapestries.
So much for that.
Agamemnon turns to call attention to Cassandra in the chariot.
Welcome this foreign girl into our house, and do it graciously. For God, who sees us from far away, looks down with favor on a gentle master. No one freely puts on slavers' yokes, but this girl, the finest flower of all our loot, comes with us as my army's gift to me. And now, since you've talked me into this, I'll proceed into my palace, treading on the crimson pathway as I go.
Agamemnon starts to move slowly along the tapestries toward the palace and up the stairs. Cassandra remains in the chariot.
There is a sea, who will drain it dry? It gives us crimson dye in huge amounts, as valuable as silver, inexhaustible. With that we dye our garments, and of these our house has a full store, thanks to the gods. We're rich. We have no sense of poverty. I'd have vowed to tread on many clothes, to use what we have stored up in our home, if an oracle had ordered such a payment to save your life. If the root still lives, the house can blossom into leaf once more, growing high arching shade, protection against the dog stars scorching season. Your return to your father's earth and home brings us the summer's heat and winter time. It's like when Zeus makes wine from bitter grapes. The house immediately grows cool once its lord strolls through his own halls in complete command.
By this time, Agamemnon has reached the palace doors and has just entered the palace.
Oh, Zeus! Zeus who accomplishes all things, answer my prayers. Take care to bring about all things that reach fulfillment through your will.
Exit Clytemnestra into the palace. The doors close behind her.
Someone's a chorus.
This is now scene 7. So this
Oh, it's
will
me.
be
Oh, yeah. Okay. Why does this sense of sudden dread hover so unceasingly around my heart with such foreboding? My song of prophecy goes on unbidden and unpaid. Why can't some calming confidence sit on my mind and spurn my fears as enigmatic dreams? It was so long ago. Time has long since buried deep in sand the mooring cables cast when the army sailed to Troy. My own eyes tell me Agamemnon has returned. For that, I need no further witness, but still here, deep in my heart, the spontaneous song keeps up its tuneless dirge as the avenging furies chant. It kills my confidence, my hope. Everything inside me beats against my chest, surging back and forth in tides of grim foreboding. Something's moving to fulfillment, but I pray my premonitions prove false and never come to light. For, as we know, boundaries of vigorous health break down, disease is always pressing hard the common wall between them. So, with the fate of men, it holds to a straight course, then all at once can crash upon a hidden rock of grief. But if, as a precaution, men toss overboard some part of their rich cargo and time their throw just right, the house, though grieving, will not completely founder, nor will its hull be swamped. And Zeus' bountiful, rich gifts reaped from the furrows every year hold off the plague of famine. But once a murdered man's dark blood has soaked the ground, who then can bring him back through song? Even Aeschylus, whose skill could raise men from the dead, who was stopped by Zeus's thunderbolt. Was that not warning to us all? If one fate settled by the gods did not prevent another fate securing an advantage, my heart would then outrace my tongue. I'd speak out loud and clear. I'd cry my forebodings. But now it mutters in the dark. Uneasy, holding little hope for any resolution, and still my spirit smolders.
Enter Clytemnestra from the palace. She addresses Cassandra, who is still in the chariot.
You should go into, you up there, Cassandra. Zeus, in his mercy to you, he has made you a member of our household, one who shares its purification rites. So you can take your place before the altar of the god protecting all our wealth, along with other slaves. So come down, leave the chariot, and leave your pride behind. Men say even Hercules, Alcmene's son, once long ago was sold in slavery and had to eat its bitter bread. If fate has brought you to the same condition, be very grateful. You serve masters here who have been rich forever. Certain men who have reaped a harvest of rich goods beyond their dreams maltreat their slaves. They go too far. But here with us, you'll get the treatment our traditions say is right.
Our queen is talking to you. Her meaning's clear. Fate has caught you in its nets. You'd best obey, unless such action is beyond your power.
If she's not like a swallow with a song all her own, something barbarously obscure, I'll speak so she can understand. She must obey?
Go with the queen. Of all your options now, what she says is best. Do as she says. Step down from your chariot seat.
Come down now. I don't have time to waste on this girl here. Inside by our central hearth, Our victims are already waiting for the sacrifice, a joyful time beyond our fondest hopes. So if you want to play your part in this, you better come at once. If what I say means nothing to you, if you can't understand, at least use your foreign hand to make a sign.
An interpreter is what the stranger needs. She's like some wild thing, freshly trapped.
She's mad, too busy listening to her troubled heart. She's just left her newly captured city, then come here without sufficient time to learn to stomach the controlling bit. She will, once her anger's been dissolved in foaming blood. But I'll waste no more time dealing with her contempt outside the house.
Clytemnestra turns and exits into the palace. The members of the chorus gather around Cassandra.
I'll not lose my temper. I pity her. You unhappy creature, why not come down? Leave the chariot. Why not accept fate's yoke of your own free will?
Earth, the sky, Apollo, Apollo!
Why cry out your distress in Apollo's name? He's not a god who pays attention to those who mourn like this.
Earth, the sky, Apollo, my destroyer!
She cried out again, such ominous words, and to a god who's not the one to have around at times of grieving.
Apollo, Apollo, God of the road, you're destroying me. Why leave me here beyond all hope a second time?
Looks as if she's going to prophecy to say something of her unhappiness. She may be a slave, but inside her, the god's voice still remains.
Apollo, oh Apollo, God of the road, you're obliterating me. Where am I now? Where have you led me? What house is this?
If you don't know where you are, I'll tell you. You're at the house of the sons of Atreus. That's the truth.
No. A house that hates the gods. House full of death. Kinsmen butchered, heads chopped off. A human slaughterhouse awash in blood.
This stranger's like a keen hound on the scent. She's on the trail of blood.
I see evidence I trust. Young children screaming as they're butchered. Then their father eating his own infants' roasted flesh.
We've heard about your fame in prophecy, but here in Argos, no one wants a prophet.
Oh God. Was this she had in mind? What new agony inside this house is she preparing? Something monstrous, barbaric, evil, beyond all love, all remedy, and help is far away.
I don't understand what she's saying now. What she first said that I understood, the whole city talks about it.
Oh, evil woman. You're going to do it. Your own husband, the man who shares your bed. Once you've washed him clean there in the bath. How shall I describe how this all ends? It's coming soon. She's stretching out her hand, and now her other hand is reaching for him.
I still don't understand. What she's saying is just a little too confused. Her dark prophecies leave me bewildered.
Look! Look over there! What's that apparition? Is that Death's net? No, she's the net. The one who sleeps with him. The woman murders willing agent. Let those furies insatiably at work against this clan rise up and scream of joy. They have another victim fit for stoning.
What fury do you now invoke to shriek throughout this house? What you've just said makes me afraid. Drop by drop, the dark blood flows around my heart, like mortal wounds when life's sunset comes, when death
Look over
is near.
there! Look now! Keep the great bull from his mate. She's caught him in her robes. Now she's gores him with her black horn. A trap! He's collapsing in the bath! I'm telling you what's going on. He's being murdered in there while bathing. A plot to kill him.
I can't boast of any skill with prophecies, but these strike me as pointing to disaster. What good ever comes to men from prophecies? They talk of evil. All those skillful words encourage men to be afraid of what the prophet chants.
Alas for me. Alas for my unwelcome fate. I'm crying out for my own suffering. My cup of grief is full, brimful. Why have you brought me here so wretched, if not to die, the second victim? Why else?
Your mind is possessed. Some god is in control. And so you wail aloud about your death, just like some shrill nightingale that sings without a pause of her heart's distress, lamenting all her life for her dead son, life rich in sorrow.
Oh, to have that, the fate of the singing nightingale. Gods gave her body wings and sweet life. She does not weep, but murder waits for me. A two-edged sword hands me to death.
These vain prophetic cries of woe you chant, where do they start? Why introduce such horrific fear into your songs? How do you set some limit to the path where what you see so ominously leads?
Alas for that wedding, Paris and his bride, how it destroyed his loved ones. Alas for the Scamander, river of my home. By your banks I was raised so long ago, brought up to all this misery. And now it seems I must soon chant my prophecies by Cocytus and the banks of Acheron, twin rivers of the dead.
What's that? The words seem clear enough. Any child could understand. Your cruel fate strikes at me like a bloody fang. Ah, it hurts. My heart breaks to hear you chant your sorrows.
Alas for my city's fate, totally destroyed. Alas for my father's sacrifices, all those grazing herds, offerings to save our walls in vain. The city was not spared. All that misery it's endured. Now I, on fire too, must go to ground.
You keep repeating what you said before. Some evil-minded demon swooping down has fallen on you, forcing you to sing, to chant your songs of death. Where does this end? That's what I can't see.
Then my prophecy will veil itself no more like some new bride half concealed from view. Let it now rise as clear as a fresh wind, blowing toward the rising sun, a wave cresting through the dawn and bringing on a tide of woe far greater than my own. I'll teach you no more in cryptic riddles. And you bear witness. Run the trail with me as I sniff out the track of ancient crimes. Up there on that roof, there sits a chorus. It never leaves. They sing in harmony, but the song is harsh, predicting doom. Drinking human blood has made them bold. They dance in celebration through the house. The family's furies cannot be dislodged. Sitting in the home, they chant their song, the madness that began all this, each in turn cursing that man who defiled his brother's bed. Have I missed the mark? Or, like a fine archer, have I hit the beast? Or am I selling lies? A fortune teller babbling door to door. Tell me on your oath how well I know these stories of this family's crimes.
How could an oath of ours be any help, no matter how sincere, to heal your grief? But I'm amazed that you, born overseas, can say so much about a foreign city, as if you've lived here.
It was Apollo, the god of prophecy, who made me what I am.
Surely the god was not in love with you?
I used to be ashamed to talk of this.
When we're doing well, we all have scruples.
Apollo was like a mighty wrestler, panting all over me in love.
Did you go true with it, bear him a child?
I promised to, and then I broke my word.
Did you already have prophetic skill inspired by the god?
At that time, I used to prophesy all my countrymen. I'd foretell disasters.
How did you escape Apollo's anger?
Since I resisted him, no one believes me.
But to us, at least, what you prophesy seems true enough.
The pains I feel, the fearful labor pains of true prophecy seize me, confuse me as they start again full of foreboding. Look there. See those creatures, young ones, sitting by the house, dark shapes, like something from a dream? They're like children, murdered by their loved ones. Their hands are full, clenching chunks of their own flesh as food, their guts and inner organs. It's all so clear that awful meal their own father tasted. For all that, I say, revenge is on the way. Someone's planning it. Like a craven lion, a beast wallowing in bed, keeping watch, waiting for my master to get back. Yes, my master, since I must now bear the yoke of slavery. That lord of war who led the fleet and ravaged Ilion has no idea what the cur is up to, what evil plans that hateful bitch is hatching as her tongue licks his hands in welcome, ears perked up for joy like treacherous Ate, goddess who destroys. It's outrageous. The woman kills her man. What shall I call her? What awful monster suits her? A snake? An amphibian with a head at either end? Or perhaps a Scylla, living in the rocks, preying on sailors, raging mother of hell who breaches relentless war on loved ones? How that woman in her audacity screamed out in triumph like a battle cry, pretending to enjoy his safe return. Whether you credit what I say or not, that doesn't really matter. Why should it? What will come, and soon enough, as you stand here full of pity, you'll say, Cassandra's prophecies were all true.
I understand about Theseus' meal and tremble at thinking how he ate his children's flesh. Terror grips me as I hear these truths without embellishment. As for the rest, hearing that just makes me lose my way.
I tell you, you'll see Agamemnon dead.
Poor girl, calm yourself. Tone down those words.
No. No one can heal what my words prophesy.
Not if they're true, but may the gods forbid.
While you pray here, others move in to kill.
What man is going to commit such crimes?
What man? You've completely missed the point. You've failed to understand my prophecies.
Yes, I have. I don't see who has means to do it.
Yet I can speak Greek well enough.
So does the oracle at Delphi, but understanding what it says is hard.
Oh, it's fire! His fire comes over me once more. The pain, Lycian Apollo, burning me. That two-footed lion is crouching there with a wolf. Once the noble lion's gone, she's going to kill me. The agony. She now prepares her drugs, and in her rage vows I too will be part of her revenge as she whets a sword to kill her king. He brought me here. Now we both die. Her retribution. So why do I bear these ornaments that mock me? This rod, these prophets' wreaths around my neck. Let me be rid of you before I die.
Cassandra breaks her wand and throws off the insignia of her office as a prophet.
There. An end to you. With you down there, I get revenge. Make some other woman rich. Let her preach destruction instead. Look how Apollo in person strips me of my prophetic robes. The gods who watched as my friends in their hatred turned on me, mocked me so savagely in these very clothes. They thought they knew what they were doing, but they were wrong. I heard them call me names. Beggar, starving wretch. I endured them all. And now the prophet God is done with me. He's led his prophet to her place of death. No father's altar for me here. Instead, a chopping block awaits, slaughtered in one hot stroke of bloody sacrifice. But we'll not die without the gods' revenge. Another man will come and will avenge us. A son who'll kill his mother, then pay back his father's death. A wanderer in exile. A man this country's made a stranger. He'll come back, and like a coping stone, he'll bring the ruin of his family to a close. For gods have made a powerful promise. His father's stretched out corpse will bring him home. Then, why then do I lament so piteously? Since I'm the one who first saw how Troy would be wiped out the way it was. Since now how those who took the city are being destroyed in judgment from the gods. I'll go to meet my fate. I'll dare to die. I'll greet this doorway as the gates of death. Once the blow strikes, I pray I'll have a gentle end. No struggle, as my lifeblood drains away. And then I'll close my eyes.
You poor woman. So much pain and wisdom. You've said so much. But if you see your death, see it so clearly, how can you go on so bravely to the altar like an ox destined by gods for sacrifice?
There's no way out. My friends, the time has come.
But there's some benefit in going last.
This is the day. It makes no sense to run.
You know, you endure your suffering with courage I admire.
No one hearing that has reason to be glad.
But to die well confers some human dignity.
I cry for you, my father, your noble children.
What's wrong? Why turn around in fear?
This house, it's horrific.
Why call out in horror? Is there some vision in your mind?
It's this house. It stinks of murder, blood, and slaughter.
No, that's the smell of sacrifice, victims at the hearth.
That smell. It's like an open grave.
Do you mean the splendid Syrian incense? It's all through the house.
No. But I must go. I'll lament my death and Agamemnon's too inside this house. Enough of living. Alas, my friends, I'm not holding back in fear like some bird trapped in bushes. I want you to witness how I went to meet my death, when for me another woman will be killed. A man will die for one who married evil. This is my last request before I die.
I pity you, poor creature, and your death, which you have prophesied.
One last time I feel the urge to speak, not sing a dirge about my death. I pray to the sun here, in the light of his most recent day, that those who carry out revenge for me will make my enemies pay with their blood for butchering a slave, an easy victim. Alas, for human life. When things go well, a shadow overturns it all. When badly, a damp sponge wipes away the picture. Of these two, the second is more pitiful.
Cassandra exits slowly and deliberately through the palace doors, which close behind her.
To rest unsatisfied amid great wealth is in the nature of all human beings. No one can point and order it away from pricely homes by uttering the words, dissatisfaction, enter here no more. Take Agamemnon. The powers in heaven permitted him to capture Priam's town, to return home honored by the gods, but now, if he must pay the penalty for blood which other men before him shed and die in retribution for the dead he killed himself, what mortal human being who hears all of this can boast he lives a life unscarred by fate?
Ah! Help me! I'm hit! A deadly blow!
I was like a Mario.
Silence! Who cried out? Something about a deadly blow?
Wait, who's the... Wait. I'm hit again! A second blow!
That's the king in there. Those cries, I think. Tell us what's going on. Come now, let's decide what's best to do, our safest course of action.
At this point, the chorus breaks up in panic, losing its unity as a group. Individual members speak to each other in great confusion.
Here's my advice. Summon all the people. Call them to bring help up to the palace.
I say, we must attack the house at once. Catch them at it. Swords still wet with blood.
My view is we should do something like that. I vote we act. There's no time to delay.
That's all so clear. This is the opening move, a sign they're going to tyrannize the city.
We're wasting time. They've thrown aside all sense of hesitation. Their hands won't rest.
I don't know what scheme I could propose. It's up to those who carry out the plan to tell us what to do.
That's my view too. I don't know how to bring the dead to life with nothing but our words.
But just to stay alive, we should bow down before these tyrants who desecrate the house?
No, we can't do that. Death would be preferable. A gentle fate than such a tyranny.
But should we assume, just on the basis of those groans we heard, that Agamemnon's dead?
Before we act, we must have clear evidence. To guess like this is not really knowing what is true or not.
That's it then! Oh, that's of course leader.
That's it then. Everyone agrees on this. We need to know more clearly how things stand with Agamemnon, son of Atreus.
The palace doors open, revealing the bodies of Agamemnon and Cassandra. Clytemnestra stands over them. She is covered in blood.
Before this moment, I said many things to suit my purposes. I'm not ashamed to contradict them now. How else could I act on my fate, on my hate for such a hateful man who feigned his love? How else prepare my nets of agony so high no one could jump them? I've brewed on the struggle many years. The old blood feud. My moments come at last. Though long delayed, I stand now where I struck, where I achieved what I set out to do. I did all this, I won't deny the fact. Round this man to cast my all-embracing net, rich robes of evil, as if catching fish. He had no way out, no eluding fate. I stabbed him twice. He gave out 2 groans. Then as his limbs went limp, I hit again a 3rd blow, my prayerful dedication to Zeus, underground protector of the dead. He collapsed, snorting his life away, spitting great globs of blood all over me, drenching me in showers of his dark blood, and I rejoiced, just as the fecund earth rejoices when the heavens send spring rains and newborn flower buds burst into bloom. That's how things stand. Old men of Argos, be joyful, if that's how you feel. For me, this is my triumph. If it were fitting to pour libations on this corpse, I'd pour my curses out. That would be just. He filled the mixing bowls in his house with such destructive memory. And now he drinks to the dregs. He's home at last.
What you say I find incredible. How can that tongue of yours gloat like this, exulting over your dead husband?
You're testing me as if I was some silly woman, but my heart is fearless. Let me tell you what you already know. Then you can praise or criticize me as you like. I don't care. This man is Agamemnon, my husband. He's a corpse. The work of this right hand, a work of justice. And that's how matters stand.
Woman, what earth-grown poison have you eaten? What evil drink drawn from the surging sea that you're so mad to risk the public voice, the curses people mutter? You cast him off. You cut him down. So now you'll be thrown out, exiled from the city. A hateful thing to your own people.
So now you'd sentence me to banishment. Send me from the city, a thing accursed. Back then, you made no accusation against this man lying here. He sacrificed his own child, that dear girl I bore in pain, to charm the winds from Thrace, and didn't care? To him, she was a beast for slaughter. He had flocks of them. His farms were full. Shouldn't you have banished him from Argos in punishment for that polluting crime? You're strict enough when you pass judgment on what I've done. So let me caution you. I'm prepared to fight you head to head. And if you win, well, then you can govern me. But if God's lets me prevail, you old men will learn, old as you are, to behave yourselves.
You're too ambitious. Far too arrogant. Blood-drenched murders made you mad. That's plain. Your eyes are full of blood. Now stroke for stroke you'll pay for what you've done. You've lost your friends, you've lost your honor, and you've...
Then hear this too. To the force behind my oath, by that justice I exacted for my child. By 8, goddess of destruction, by the fury to whom I offered up this man. My hopes will never walk these halls in fear. So as long as Aeschylus stokes the blazing fires in my hearth, and he's as loyal to me now as always, my shield, no man to trifle with. He'll boost my confidence. Here he lies, the man who abused his wife, seduced by every captive girl, Ilion. And here she lies, his concubine, his spear prize, the faithful prophetess who shared his bed. She also knew the rowing benches where sailors sweat. They get what they deserve. He's dead. She, like the swan, sang her last song, then died. Now she lies there, his sweetheart. She'll bring new thrills, fresh pleasures to my bed.
Oh, that some fate would soon come, free from suffering and quick, bringing endless sleep, our last eternal sleep. Now our gracious Lord is dead. For a woman's sake he suffered much, and now by a woman's hand he died. Alas for you, Helen, frantic woman. On your own beneath Troy's walls, you slaughtered many lives, and more than many. Now, I lost my place. Now you wear your final garland, one long remembered for the blood which will never wash away. Back then in this house lived a spirit of strife, a power that broke our king.
Don't torment yourself like this, invoking death and fate, or redirect your rage on Helen, as if she killed those men, all those Danaan lives, all by herself, and brought us pain past remedy.
Oh, spirit that falls upon this house, on Menelaus, on Agamemnon, descendants of Tantalus, you overpower me. Through these 2 sisters, each with a power like a man, you consume my heart with grief. Perched on his corpse, the hateful raven caws her song, her harsh, triumphant tune.
Now you're talking sense. When you call on the demon of this house, who's eaten up all 3 generations, the one who nurtures bloodlust in our guts, and so new blood spurts out before the old wound heals.
You appeal to that huge fiend haunting this house, whose anger weighs it down, to that tale of evil fate insatiably consuming us. Alas, alas, the will of Zeus, the cause of everything, who brings all things about. What can come to mortal men except at Zeus's will? And in what happened here, what's not caused by the gods? Alas, my king, my lord, how shall I weep for you? How speak of you with love? To lie entangled in the spider's web, gasping life away, a sacrilege. Stretched out on his bed of shame, struck down in treachery, the 2-edged sword wielding by your wife.
Are you saying this work is mine? That's not so. Don't think of me as Agamemnon's wife. The form of this corpse's wife was taken on by the ancient savage spirit of revenge. For that brutal meal prepared by Atreus, it sacrificed 1 full-grown man, payment for 2 butchered children.
Who would ever say you bear no guilt for Agamemnon's murder? How could they? How? Yet that avenging spirit acting on his father's crimes could well have egged you on. Black ruin moves ahead with force through streams of family blood, granting vengeance for the young served up as chunks of meat. Alas, my king, my lord, how shall I weep for you? How speak of you with love? To lie entangled in the spider's web, gasping life away, a sacrilege, stretched out on his bed of shame, struck down in treachery, the 2-edged sword wielded by your wife.
I don't think the man died wretchedly, like some poor slave. Surely his own deceit brought ruin on this house. His suffering matches exactly what he did himself. Remember my own Iphigenia, his daughter, that sweet flower whom we mourn. So let him not boast out loud in Hades. He was the first to draw his sword, and by the sword he's been repaid.
There's no clear way, and now this family's falling. I'm afraid. It's not just bloody drops, no. Storms of blood rain batter down, destroying the house while fate on yet another weight stone hones the edge of justice. For the next act, one more crime. Oh, earth, my earth, how I wish you'd swallow me before I ever saw my king lying on such a bed. A silver-plated bath? Who will now bury him? Who will lament for him? Who Will you dare to do this? A woman mourning for the spirit of the husband she just killed? Complete the injustice you've done with wretched favors to the dead to exacerbate your monstrous crimes? As people stand around the grave to praise this godlike man in tears, whose sad heart will be sincere?
That business is none of your concern. At our hands he collapsed in death. We'll bury him. But this house will not weep. No, Iphigenia will meet him down there, as is fitting. The daughter greets her father happily by that swift stream of sorrow. Then she'll embrace the man with love.
One disgrace exchanged for yet another. The struggle to decide is hard. The man who sins is sinned against. The killer pays the price. Yet while Zeus sits upon his throne, this decree from God remains. The man who acts will suffer. Who can then cast from this house its self-perpetuating curse? This race is wedded to destruction.
Now you're close to the truth. For my part, I'm prepared to swear an oath to the demon of the house of Atreus. I'll rest content with what's been done. Hard though that it is, if he'll leave this house alone, transferring family murder somewhere else to some other clan, I don't need much. A small part of our wealth, if I can free these halls entirely of this madness, the urge that we have to kill each other.
Enter Aegisthus with armed attendants. The situation now grows increasingly tense, with the soldiers menacing the members of the chorus, who begin to coalesce as a political unit, rediscovering their strength. This sense of a major irreconcilable political division and the threat of civil war grows increasingly acute until the end of the play. What a glorious day of retribution! Now, I can say that once again the gods, looking down on men, avenge their crimes. How it fills my heart with joy to see this man stretched out over here in a robe the Furies wove, full payment for deceitful treachery his father's hand devised. For Atreus, king of Argos, was this man's father. To set the record straight, my father Thyestes, brother to Atreus, challenged his authority. So Atreus expelled him from his home and city. But Thyestes in his misery returned, a suppliant at his own hearth, praying fate would save him. He would not be killed. His own blood would not stain his native ground. Atreus, the godless father of this man, welcomed him effusively, but not with love. He set up what seemed a celebration, a feast day with lots of meat, but served my father flesh of his own children. He sliced their toes and fingers off. Over these he diced the other parts, then passed the dish to Thyestes, where he sat beside him. My father then, in total ignorance, took the food he didn't recognize and ate the meal which, as you've witnessed, destroyed the race. When Thyestes learns the abominable thing he's done, he screams, staggers back, vomits up the butchered flesh. Then, kicking down the banquet table to underscore his cry for justice, he calls down on the house of Atreus a curse no one can bear. Let them all die, the race of Pleisthenes, all die like this. That is why you see this man lying here. This murder was my plan for justice. For Atreus threw my broken father out, and me as well, his third son, still a child, an infant wrapped in swaddling clothes. But I grew up, and justice brought me back. I seized the man who'd banished me. I planned each detail of this murderous scheme. Now I see him in the nets of justice. I can face even my own death with joy.
To me, you're contemptible, Aegisthus, getting pleasure from all this agony. You say you killed the king deliberately and planned the cowardly slaughter on your own. I tell you, remember this. When justice comes, your head will not escape the people's cursing or death by stoning at their hands.
So you say, but you man the lower oars. Your masters on the higher tiers control the ship. You may be old, but you'll learn how painful it is at your age to be taught your place. Hunger pangs and chains, two worthy teachers, make excellent cures for teaching wisdom, even with old men. Surely you have eyes, can't you see this? You shouldn't kick at thorns, you'll only hurt yourselves.
You womanly creature. You stayed at home waiting out the war until the men came back. You soiled a real man's bed, then planned to kill our king.
This talk of yours will soon give you sufficient cause to weep. The tongue of Orpheus was not like yours. The pleasure of his voice drew all things to him. Your puny squawking merely irritates. But once I chain you up, my force has ways to make you more compliant.
Is that me? Hold on, let me see. Where are we at?
Evens, I think, are...
Chorus number 2.
Oh God, that's me. Oh my God, I'm super duper lost.
It's,
I did not know the chorus number came back.
1630.
1634-ish.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Chorus number
As if you rule in Argos, you, the one who plotted Agamemnon's death, but weren't brave enough to kill the man yourself.
Clearly, it was the woman's role to trick him. I was not a man who he would trust. After all, I'm an old enemy of his. But with his wealth, I'll try to rule the people. Those who resist, I'll strap under the yoke. It won't be light, not like a well-fed trace horse. No, miserable starvation in the dark. Then we'll see how docile they can be.
You coward. Why not kill the man yourself? Why rely upon the woman for the murder? A disgrace to her own country and its gods. Oh, can Osterus still see the light of day? If his good fortune holds, will he come home, win out, and kill the two of them up there?
If that's the way you want to act and speak, you'll get your lesson fast. Men, stand ready. My trusty guard, your work's right in front of you. The soldiers place their weapons at the ready and move in to menace the chorus. The chorus stands its ground, raising their staves as weapons.
Don't give way. Each of you, get your weapons ready.
My hand is on my sword as well. I'm not afraid to die.
You say you'll welcome death. That's good to hear. We're happy to oblige.
Clytemnestra, alarmed at the way in which the conflict has grown, moves quickly between the guards led by Aeschylus and the chorus.
Stop this, my dearest. Let's not act to bring on further trouble. Our wretched harvest is bountiful enough. We've reaped sufficient pain. No more bloodshed. You
A woman caked in blood.
honorable old men, go home, yield to fate before you hurt yourselves. What we've done here, we had to do. Let our troubles end right now. That will allow, even though our fate has struck a heavy blow. That's my advice. What a woman ought to say, if any here will act on it.
What about these men here who let their tongues prattle on against me, hurling insult in my face? Testing fate, they throw aside all moderate restraint to abuse their master.
Men of Argos will never cringe before an evil man.
I'll get my own back.
I missed it.
I'll get my own back soon enough.
Not if fate brings Orestes home again.
I understand how exiles feed on hope.
Go on. Fatten yourself up while you still can. Pollute all justice.
You must know you'll pay for all this insolence to me.
Keep on bragging, just like a cock beside his head.
Leave them their feeble yelping. You and I control the house. We'll put things in order.
Clytemnestra and Aeschylus back slowly into the palace and close the doors, leaving the guards and chorus still facing each other. Slowly, the chorus disintegrates and its members walk off one by one. The guards form up in front of the palace, an armed defense before the doors. The end.
Damn!
Cringe before me.
SNL sketch.
It's really unusual.
Cringe.
It's like very unusual, I feel like, for a named character to get the final line. Like it's usually the chorus being like,
Yeah.
here we
Yeah.
are to recap everything that happened in this play. But like in this, it's just like she's like, bye bitches. We got the
Deuces.
house now.
If I bring back the cringe show, it's going to be renamed Cringe Before Me.
Your Grace, I bring good cringe before you.
Cringe Before Me.
Please consider my
Cringe for
cringe
you.
I have
Please see my
delivered from
cringe.
across the lands.
Oh my God,
The
Scott!
finest cringe.
Great job
So-
dividing everything up. Thank you.
It's always interesting reading these plays and then having them spoke out loud. And the first half of this was a lot of monologues,
Yeah.
a lot of just like recapping all of the things that have been going on
Yeah,
before.
it really picked up once Agamemnon showed up.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
The Cassandra and Agamemnon, yeah.
That
Yeah.
first chunky monologue I had to read, I was like, oh my god.
I know, we were like,
3
sorry,
hours
Cam.
later.
Yeah, I was like, I kept looking. I was like, oh, it keeps going and going. And going.
Yeah, you killed it though, Cameron.
Yeah, you did great job. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You popped off.
But yeah, some people in chat were talking about this. So there's this play, and then there are 2 plays that come
there's
after
2
it.
more.
That sort of essentially it's a trilogy, and the trilogy is mainly about figuring out when you have to murder
Sorry,
your
posing.
family. When you have to murder your family,
When
who
is it okay
right?
to murder
Yeah.
your family?
Exactly. And because as they talked about here at the end, Clytemnestra is basically saying, me murdering my husband is much less of a crime than me taking revenge for him murdering our daughter.
Yeah.
And so you have to sort of it's basically a calculus of what family relations are more important.
right.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, there. So in Arslan Roy is saying, do the trilogy. What is your interest in that?
Because
I mean, we could.
it's Agamemnon, Electra, and what's the third one? Or is Electra
It's,
the third one?
Daredevil.
No, so here it's right. It's Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and then the Eumenides, the kindly ones, which is kind of like a joke because they turn the Furies into the kindly ones because Greeks are all about like making scary things seem nice and happy.
Cool.
But I don't know. I'll look at them and see if we can divide the lines and if they'll be good.
They work, yeah.
So maybe.